It is August 2026. Industrial production has fallen more than 2% year over year, while Europe's share of global manufacturing continues its decade-long slide. We are actively presiding over the dismantling of our own economic future. Look at this illustration of the geometric trap. We are the asset caught in the center, crushed by two unstoppable forces. The United States applies pressure through a capital monopoly and tech sovereignty, while China dominates manufacturing scale and critical raw materials. We have locked ourselves inside a golden cage. This diagram tallies the cost of European regulatory drag. Between the AI Act, emissions trading systems, and fragmented tax regimes, we impose an administrative tax of more than 50 billion euros every year. We are passing laws far faster than we are writing checks. When you regulate without investing, massive financial targets, like Mario Draghi's proposal for 800 billion euros in new funding, remain little more than academic exercises. The structural weaknesses we face today are converging toward a single event window. In November 2026, the potential closure of the Strait of Hormuz, new U.S. trade tariffs, and Chinese rare earth export bans create a nexus choke point that will dictate the next decade. This timeline graphic plots the mathematical probabilities for our industrial future over the next decade, once that choke point forces a branch in history. The breakdown path shows a 20% probability of industrial halts. The base column shows a 45% probability we become a museum of industry. The stress column shows a 35% probability of surviving as a mid-tier player. Notice what is missing. Even in the absolute best-case scenario, where we perfectly execute painful reforms, we do not emerge as a global superpower. Time is already up. The first step to surviving this decade is letting go of the political illusions we've been sold, specifically the belief that the 43 billion euro CHIPS Act will secure European tech sovereignty. This panel contrasts our policy against geopolitical reality. Even with TSMC opening new fabrication plants in Germany, Europe remains a consumer reliant on foreign intellectual property, permanently 1 to 2 generations behind Taiwan. The unfixable reality of the European economy is our structural energy deficit. Modern manufacturing requires physical power at a scale our current policies cannot provide. Look at this cost breakdown of the European energy premium. The red cube represents our structural cost of roughly $95 per megawatt hour. That burden sits heavily on top of the much cheaper U.S. production baseline. Without massive domestic shale gas extraction or a hyperscaled nuclear renaissance, we are permanently disadvantaged. Every physical good manufactured in Europe carries a 15 to 20% production tax built right into its energy footprint. Any industrial strategy that relies on cheap, high-volume energy is mathematically terminal. Capital must abandon heavy, energy-intensive manufacturing immediately. We have to stop fighting a war we have already lost. Survival requires absolute focus, executing a strategy we call the BIS doctrine. The core directive is simple. Europe must monopolize the boring, abandoning unwinnable consumer tech races to dominate the highly defensible sectors where no one else wants to compete. Here are the 3 pillars of dominance. First, the yellow B2B middle layer, mastering industrial software and AI automation. Second, the silver pillar, shifting capital into low-energy, high-margin precision engineering and complex pharma. Third, becoming indispensable B2B infrastructure for semiconductor equipment and green tech. Consider ASML. They do not build consumer laptops or smartphones. They build the highly specialized, incredibly complex lithography machines that the entire global semiconductor supply chain relies upon to function. Our era of regulatory luxury is over. Since we are no longer the architects of the global order, we must become its indispensable infrastructure.